though it hasn't been identified by the family? Why is it that the insurance companies have that much latitude to try to squeeze the most dollars out of any one family? And that's unfair. You should be able to buy the service you want at a reasonable rate. And in particular, because this service is demanded for by the government. So with those comments, Mr. Speaker, I'll take my seat and for the hour of interruption.
Thank you. We've reached the moment of interruption. The honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in my place to debate the resolution that was submitted by the honourable member from Halifax Chebucto, which reads, "Be it resolved that the government should immediately end the practice of impoverishing seniors by making them pay for health care in nursing homes." And Mr. Speaker, the reason I think the honourable member brought this resolution forward tonight for debate was that we don't want this very important issue to fall off the public agenda. Today, the last few days, the last few weeks, in fact, Mr. Speaker, the focus of the press gallery and people in this chamber and outside has very much been on the issue, the very important issue of insurance rates. And while that's a very important issue that impacts a lot of people, we cannot forget that this government has not addressed adequately the very real position of quite a few seniors and their families who continue to be in continuing care, long-term care, nursing home facilities, and seeing their financial resources stripped away from them to pay for the health care costs of being in a nursing home. Mr. Speaker, we have worked very hard to give voice to seniors and their families in this province around this issue. And just this week, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition brought forward the case of Jerry Harrop, who was the pastor to Tommy Douglas in Regina during the early 50s, baptized his daughter Shirley, and came to Nova Scotia, retired to Nova Scotia because he loved this province and our way of life. Well, Reverend Harrop, who is now 85, has Parkinson's and has entered a nursing home or is in the process of doing this. And his daughter has come here from another province to assist in that process and make sure her dad is comfortable and well taken care of. And Mr. Harrop, of course, has liquidated his residence, his home, his car, and some other assets. And Mr. Speaker, lo and behold, his family have had to face the harsh reality that in this province, unlike many other provinces in Canada, Mr. Harrop will be systematically stripped of those assets to pay for the health care component of his nursing home care. Mr. Speaker, this government has had to be dragged with very embarrassing red faces as the plight of individuals across Nova Scotia became more and more public in the last year and a half around this issue. First, we had a very public debate that educated, I think, people who had not had the experience of being in this system of the harsh, the even draconian kinds of measures that this government had put in place to financially assess seniors so that they could squeeze every conceivable cent they could possibly get out of seniors who required nursing home care. how in some cases the community dwelling spouse or partner would be left really in circumstances where they were worried about what would become of them, both in the community or if they required care as they became older. And after a lot of pressure on government, including a petition from approximately 20,000 Nova Scotians, this government, in the fall, back in November, I believe, Mr. Speaker, made some small concessions around the financial assessment process and removed certain things from that financial assessment. As you would know, Mr. Speaker, they removed things like cottages and farmland and farm buildings and these sort of things. If there was a community dwelling spouse, they would allow $25,000 to remain with the spouse. However, Mr. Speaker, there's still an extraordinary amount of inequity in the system, in the assessment system, so that, for example, people who have already sold the family home and it's become a liquid asset that they've invested will have to deplete those assets. However, a person who has maintained the family home and resides in it will not have to deplete those assets. So this inequity does not seem to have a logical base, a rational basis, and it penalizes people who have decided to sell their residence and perhaps move in with a son or a daughter or a relative prior to going into a nursing home. In my own situation, Mr. Speaker, I was quite surprised last week just to learn from my neighbors that their mom has left Nova Scotia and has gone, she went to one of the prairie provinces, Manitoba, I believe, where the healthcare component of nursing home care is covered. And essentially this decision was made. It wasn't an easy decision in some ways for this family, but they made this decision essentially because this is a woman with very modest means who had been living in the family home, and she had sold her home, and now when she requires health care, the assets from the sale of that property were going to be assumed by this province for her health care needs. And in Manitoba, this is not the case. Her costs will be around the room and board of being in long-term care, but not the health care costs. And Mr. Speaker, we have people in Nova Scotia who pay in excess of $5,000 a month in some cases for nursing home costs. We have among the highest per diem rates of nursing home cost of any province in the country. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a serious, serious problem for families. The government announced just weeks into this session, or just prior to this session, that in fact this was an issue that they would be finally prepared to address in the way that we would like it addressed now, and the way that families and Nova Scotians would like it addressed now. They would be prepared to address it by the year 2007. Mr. Speaker, this is hardly worth debating, frankly, this time frame. Nova Scotians are impatient, I believe. They see this as an attempt by government to remove this issue from the public agenda in preparation for an election. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure you that there continue to literally be thousands of Nova Scotians in this province whose family members are being stripped of their life's work, their savings, and their small degree of financial assets that they've been able to amass over their working lives. Mr. Speaker, there are still many harsh aspects in the financial assessment. You know, people who go into nursing homes and who are paying their own shot are not allowed to use money to purchase gifts for their children or their grandchildren. This seems inhumane, Mr. Speaker, and I really call on the government to rethink their stalling tactics and do the right thing by the seniors in this province. Mr. Speaker, before I said, I'd like to say to the members of the other caucuses that I have a memorial service that I have to be at shortly, so I'm not going to be able to stay to hear their part in the debate. I mean them no disrespect when I leave. This is why. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, member for Queens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to inform the members opposite of the many initiatives this government has taken to help seniors. We have developed a comprehensive approach to the care and well-being of Nova Scotia's seniors. This approach not only makes nursing home care more affordable, but entry into nursing home care simpler. In this care, all seniors receive very high in quality. Quality, access, and affordability. These are the cornerstones of this government's work for the seniors of Nova Scotia. I want to begin by taking the members of this House back to April the 7th, 2003. April 7 was the day we announced that starting then, seniors would pay less towards their nursing home care for the cost of care each year. Mr. Speaker, this reduction in the health care costs seniors pay in nursing homes will continue until eventually they pay only for their room and board. That point will be reached no later than April 1st, 2007. Mr. Speaker, this is excellent news for the seniors of Nova Scotia. This is also excellent news for the financial health of this province. By gradually assuming the health care costs over time, we are being responsible. We are covering the costs in a manner this province can responsibly afford. We wish we could do everything at once. It's simply not possible to cover the total nursing home care costs of seniors while respecting the many other commitments we have to the health and well-being of Nova Scotians. Right now, Mr. Speaker, each senior in a nursing home is paying $12.75 less each day than they were before April 7th, 2003. In 2004 and 2005, each senior in a nursing home will save $32 a day, or almost $12,000 a year. These savings will continue to grow until the health care costs of nursing home care are fully covered by government. Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia's nursing homes will be more affordable than nursing homes in other Atlantic provinces. Nova Scotia's nursing homes will be as affordable as they are in Ontario and the Western provinces. By 2007, Nova Scotia's seniors will pay only for their room and board in nursing homes. This is not the only way seniors are saving money for their nursing home care because of this government's approach. By April 7, 2007, government will assess seniors' ability to pay for nursing home care by considering only their income. We will no longer look at any assets when determining how much a senior needs to contribute to the costs of his or her own care. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Health's blueprint for health care in Nova Scotia, Your Health Matters, commits to treating seniors respectfully. The decision to eliminate the asset assessment is in line with the commitment in Your Health Matters to treat seniors with dignity. This decision allows seniors to keep or to pass along lifetime assets to their families. With the elimination of asset assessment, the time seniors wait to enter nursing homes will be reduced. The elimination of asset assessment also means savings in administrative dollars for the government. Because the assessment of income will be a much simpler process than the review of assets, care coordinators and the Department of Health will be able to conduct this assessment. The financial experience of the current eligibility review office will no longer, the financial expertise of the current eligibility review office will no longer be necessary. This will save taxpayers approximately $750,000 a year beginning in 2007. Mr. Speaker, that addresses the affordability. We are balancing this investment, which benefits the 20% of seniors who now pay their health care costs in nursing homes, with investments in pharmacare and the quality of care that benefits all seniors. The long-term care budget increased by $56 million between 1999 and 2002. This additional money was badly needed after decades of underfunding. This additional money enabled nursing homes to focus their spending on high-quality care for their residents. We provided the money needed for their capital projects. More than 100 capital projects were undertaken in that time and included such upgrades as special patient tubs and lifts. The home care budget also increased. It increased by $34.6 million between 1999 and 2002. Mr. Speaker, the budget increases will continue for the care of seniors. In 2003-2004, there is an additional $9.6 million to meet increasing costs and to protect the quality of care in nursing homes. There is also an additional $5.3 million for home care. Mr. Speaker, it is now easier for seniors to connect with the care they need, be it home care or long-term care. Single entry access, the one toll-free number seniors call for their care needs, has made finding care much, much simpler. It means that people receive the care they need regardless of their ability to pay. Those who can afford to pay no longer jump the queue. People who need the nursing home bed the most get it first. Mr. Speaker, the centralized wait list under single entry access has meant that the waiting lists for nursing homes have been shortened by 23%. There is also now less paperwork and duplication of the applications that seniors used to face. Now, as their care needs change, seniors can approach the same people they first contacted. No more going to another department. No more going to different people in different places if a senior's care needs change. Mr. Speaker, seniors continue to be our priority. We continue and will continue to improve quality access and affordability for seniors seeking care. In 2003 and 2004, there is additional funding to hire more home care staff to help the pockets of Nova Scotia where there are waiting lists. There is now more support for family caregivers. Their tax credit increased by 75% in 2003 and 2004. And we will consult this year with seniors to find out exactly what the next steps are. What is their vision for continuing care into the future? Mr. Speaker, with the groundwork we have laid by improving quality of care, making access to that care easier and more affordable, we are now ready to go forward and build on that groundwork. Mr. Speaker, for seniors, we're improving quality, access, and affordability of care. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to rise and participate in the evening's late debate and the resolve which reads that the government should immediately end the practice of impoverishing seniors by making them pay for health care in nursing homes. And I may broaden that a bit because I think although The past speaker mentioned that seniors was a priority of his government. I can appreciate where the member's coming from, but I wish he had better support in the front benches for the seniors in our province. And I want to point out some of the reasons why I believe that to be so. Mr. Speaker, this government, more than any other government in the history of this province, has more revenues that they have realized. An additional $1 billion has come to into Nova Scotia each year of this government's mandate, and yet they're unable to help seniors now. And now is the key word, Mr. Speaker. More revenues than ever realized by any other government. They can mail out $155 checks, Mr. Speaker, to buy some people's votes, but they can't help seniors now. The $68 million that this will have cost will have paid for the health care costs of seniors in nursing homes for the next 2 years. The next 2 years would have been paid, this would have paid for 2 years of nursing home care for all the seniors in Nova Scotia. They chose not to go that route, Mr. Speaker. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to priorities. More specifically, what priority this government places on our senior population. We should, for a couple of moments, remind all Nova Scotians on the priority that they have placed on seniors. One of the very first actions this government took back in 1999-2000 that impacted negatively on seniors was to raise the pharmacare premium and copay. The honourable member of the government spoke of the support of pharmacare and that in the times ahead. But the first thing they did was attack both the premium and the copay. What happened to government that made them change their tune on pharmacare? We all remember that it was this government that demanded of us when we were in government to eliminate the premium and to eliminate the copay. Imagine the surprise seniors received when they heard that the premium and the copay both were going up. It just didn't go up a little bit, Mr. Speaker. It went up a lot. The seniors' pharmacare premiums in this province has increased by 50% since this government came to power. The copay has increased 13% to a total of 33%. Mr. Speaker, these are all increased costs to seniors. Then we have the issue, Mr. Speaker, of this government charging seniors and others $50 a day who must wait in hospital beds while the health department conducts a financial audit so that they are able to get their hands on everything that those people have earned, have saved. And I have brought some examples to the House, and some sad examples, particularly one in the Dartmouth community where both the seniors were actually at one time in the hospital. The wife was having cardiac problems, and she was in an intensive care unit in a wheelchair-bound person. And the husband was, her husband, the spouse, was also in the hospital and had been charged $25 a day and was currently being charged $50 a day. And I was contacted by a friend, a distant relative, and that just trying to figure out what explanation of that how that could possibly come about to these people. But he had been deemed to be ready for a nursing home, and he was being charged. She was in intensive care in the same hospital. That's not good care. That's not dignity and respect for seniors, and that's not a government that has seniors as priority. So this is unacceptable. Then we have the promise of more long-term beds. That was a clear one. The Premier, early in his mandate, in the early years of his mandate, and they've gone 4 years now, Mr. Speaker, that was one of the major planks. That was one of the major promises, more long-term care beds in this province. Well, we have none, exactly none, no new beds under this government. We have seen, however, a government trumpet their success of the single entry process that is ensuring that seniors must wait longer in hospital beds, as I mentioned earlier, so that government can generate extra revenue either through the rental charge that they're charging the seniors for that bed, or going at their forensic audit for every single cent that those seniors own. We've seen a government content on splitting up couples couples who have lived for 50 years, 50-plus years together, by moving one person to a nursing home in another county because there are no beds in their home county. And we've seen the tragic episodes prior to last Christmas in particularly Lunenburg County, where people were in comfortable, affordable, safe environments and in residential settings, and were split up, and with one of the seniors sent to other parts of the province. So we've seen a government that's failed. It's failed in its efforts to ensure that the best possible services in the best possible settings are being offered to our seniors. What's happened to all the adult day programs this government was going to implement? Unless I've missed that announcement, Mr. Speaker, the government has been silent on that issue and have once again failed seniors on adult day programs. Very crucial for respite when the caregivers are reaching their burnout level, and all of the enhancement in the health and functioning of a senior, the activities of daily living that can be supported, and those types of programs. Those are well documented, complemented programs, well deserved, and this government has not come forward after 4 years of a majority government with $1 billion a year extra in revenues. It's not found its way into those programs, and that is not acceptable. Mr. Speaker, in this game of politics, you're judged by your actions. It's the actions that count. Using the previous government as an excuse, like this government has done for 4 years, and continues to this very day. There are ministers that still get up in question period and so blame the other government for this and that, and things that they should be doing, not addressing, particularly relative to seniors. So I would say you cannot hide what you have done. You can run in the election, but you can't hide. You can't hide behind the fact that it was you, that government, that increased pharmacare premiums and co-pays, one on 1 year and one another year. You cannot hide that it was you, the PC government, that did not create one long-term care bed during the term in office, despite the fact that there are many people on a waiting list today. Cannot hide that it was you that made the decision to charge seniors when waiting for a hospital bed, for a nursing home bed. That it was you that decided that giving out $155, and Mr. Speaker, many seniors won't see any of this, was more important than covering long-term care costs now. And this comes up today in law amendments. The small option home workers that are currently forced out on strike are in there pleading the same case, that please rethink that type of initiative and put money into people programs and put it where it's really will do the most work, the best work. This government cannot hide that it was them that did not create one single adult day care program, despite the promise that that would be done. They cannot hide, Mr. Speaker, that it was them that separated seniors from their loved ones because of their lack of commitment to long-term care and lack of support to alternate care settings. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm just going to close on saying that this government will be judged by their actions by our seniors. Thank you.
There's approximately 2 minutes left. The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to speak on the resolution as well. And I want to make a comment that the honourable member from the government side had been making comments with respect to how well the government has done with respect to its support for seniors. I think the honourable member from Dartmouth East has quite clearly spelled out, Mr. Speaker, just exactly how much this government has imposed upon seniors, the tremendous cost with respect to pharmacare, both the copay and the premium. Also, with respect to the long-term care issue, Mr. Speaker, this long-term care issue would have never risen on the floor if it wouldn't have been for our political party. We have continuously challenged the government to make progressive moves with respect to the long-term care issue, to the point whereby, Mr. Speaker, we believe that the government should provide full health care costs for those people in long-term care. We're not talking about the residency rate here, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about long-term care issues, long-term care medical services that would be provided to those individuals. If they were in a hospital setting, Mr. Speaker, they would not be paying for that. If they were home in their own residence and receiving that health care, then they would not be paying for that as well, Mr. Speaker. This would be covered under MSI. Here, Mr. Speaker, because they're in long-term care, they're expected to pay that money themselves. And I just want to relate to a figure, Mr. Speaker, according to the Department of Health, which states that the average Nova Scotians going into long-term care pay approximately $60,000 in savings towards the nursing home care fees. The average daily rate is $150. Before yesterday's change, which was April the 1st, in which in fact the Tory government brought the change into effect, and before that change, it would have taken an average senior 13 months to exhaust their life savings. It now takes 14 months, Mr. Speaker, just 1 month in the difference to exhaust their life savings. And they're expected to deal with this up until the year 2007 over a gradual period. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Time for the debate has expired. I thank the members for taking part in the debate this evening. The Honourable will revert to Bill number 45. The Honourable Member Cape Breton Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm certainly pleased this evening to stand and speak in this bill. And it's one, of course, that I have a lot of interest in. It's an issue that is very close, to everybody's heart here in Nova Scotia, because it affects basically every family that I'm aware of, and it's an issue that I've been contacted more times than any other issue, actually, since I've been an elected member. So, the last time I checked, I had over 800 phone calls or letters or emails in regard to this issue. So it is a major issue, and it affects the pocketbooks of many Nova Scotia families, and it's one more reason why I voted for the budget, actually, because I recognize that it's one of the issues why people need that refund and that tax break that's coming early next year. But in regard to this insurance issue, I have to say that I do support this bill, and I think that the minister at least is making some sort of effort to try to deal with the situation, and it's an issue that's not an easy issue. I could get up here and, shout at the minister over there and say that he's not trying to do anything, or he's been negligent or, negligent or whatever. But in fact, I think, in all fairness, the minister has just taken over the duties in that department, and I think he's got the reputation, and he certainly has the experience to deal with this issue, and I'm looking forward to the days ahead when he does really put the regulations in place, and I'm a little eager to see how he deals with the situation, because I don't think it's fair to blame the industry here entirely. I think the industry has indicated very clearly since day one that they've been eager to work with government to try to find a solution. And I know at least they've been discussing with the Liberal caucus. When I was over there in 1999, they came into that caucus. They came in, they asked to come in, they came forward, and they brought the issues in there, and they expressed their concern and what was taking place within their industry. I know we as a caucus looked at the other provinces, and we recognized that this was going to be a problem in Nova Scotia. And I think if there had been a Liberal government in place in 1999, things would have happened quicker. I have to admit that. But that's not the case, Mr. Speaker. The case is that we have a Tory government. We had a minister over there that I don't know why he didn't act any sooner than he did. I think when he did act, he didn't, in my opinion at least, didn't take the right course of action. And although it wasn't entirely the wrong course of action, because the information that when he ordered it before the PUB board, that information can be very handy when it comes to trying to find a solution to the problem. And so it wasn't entirely a waste of time and effort or money or anything like that there. But, you know, I said it, and I think we discussed this when I was part of the Liberal caucus very close, you know, very sincerely. And we sought the information. We got as much information as we could on it, and we felt that an all-party committee should have been put in place. And I still feel that, you know, the minister should have done that, as well as sending it to the PUB board. And, you know, in reply to questions for me and estimates, the current minister admitted that, you know, he has experience with the all-party committee, and it can find solutions, Mr. Speaker, for the members in this House, because it is, eventually, this issue is going to land on the floor of this House. It's here this evening, it's here, you know, and it's going to be back as soon as we can iron out the difficulties that it is being experienced in the industry. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have to recognize that, you know, this is an industry in turmoil. And to blame each other or to blame the minister or the government over there for not doing nothing, that's not, you know, that's not going to find any solutions. I think, you know, I have to give credit to the leader of the opposition that he's still pursuing an answer to the questions that need to be answered. And he's making every effort, and I have to give his caucus colleagues. You know, I know my House colleague from Cape Breton Centre has spent a lot of effort on this. He's met with local groups in Cape Breton, and they're at least trying. You know, I'm not suggesting that the Liberals were the only ones that did anything on this file. And, you know, the government attempted to do something early, but it was, in my opinion, at least the wrong direction. Now, Mr. Minister, you know, the whole situation changes, because we have now the most experienced minister in probably the history of Nova Scotia over there, and he's in charge of this file. We have a rookie minister over there, Mr. Speaker, that, you know, put a strong effort, and I have to give him credit. I know maybe some of my Cape Breton colleagues will get upset, but in regard to the railway issue that affected Cape Breton, the rookie minister put a strong effort into that. And, you know, the results, whether they're temporary or not, were very positive. And as a rookie, who's only up here 2 years, I think it's important to recognize that, you know, I don't believe that the minister over there, the icon of Nova Scotia, is going to allow that minister to get ahead of him. And I think that, you know, given the history and the tradition that minister has in the work ethic that he puts into issues, provided, you know, he feels it's something that he's going to put his attention to, which, you know, I have to give him credit. At least he's come forward with this bill, which is, you know, not the answer in my opinion, but at least it's a first step. It's something that's going to do or force, you know, something to happen, and hopefully it'll be a positive thing. You know, the real issue, Mr. Speaker, I believe, is with the lawyers and between the lawyers and the industry. You know, it's obvious that when, you know, whether it's a soft tissue injury or whatever, the industry is losing inside court, and the trial lawyers are winning. And that is the real issue, Mr. Speaker. And as a result, we see skyrocketing insurance rates. And, you know, I'm eager to find solutions, because they're affecting me, they're affecting my neighbors, they're affecting the people I represent, they're affecting, according to the emails and the letters and the phone calls I receive, they're affecting Nova Scotians from one end of the province to the other. I mean, Halifax now basically is one of probably the most expensive places in Canada to purchase insurance. And in reality, you know, the government should have recognized early on that this was happening, and it was going to happen quickly. And Mr. Speaker, I think just by observing what took place in the other provinces, New Brunswick and Newfoundland, prior to the crisis coming to a head here in Nova Scotia, I mean, we should have recognized that it was coming. And Mr. Speaker, I must say that, you know, the previous problem that we had with insurance was in 96, 97, in which the Liberal government acted very quickly when rates began to skyrocket and people were losing their lives. And the Liberal government in that particular day moved very quickly and brought in the graduated licensing issue. And it basically dealt with the problem at the time. But you know, that's what quick action can do, Mr. Speaker, and I think that's what was required here. But for whatever reason, that didn't happen now, and we have to deal with the situation as it is today. And as I indicated before, the minister has made every effort. I've spoken to the minister. And the minister has, you know, I think he's sincere. He's going to put an effort into this file, and he's going to find a solution. And I'm pretty confident that, given his abilities and his experience, that he can really basically find a solution here for all of Atlantic Canada when you think of it. And he could really do something here that'll leave a larger legacy than he already began. And as I indicated in the House prior, Mr. Speaker, that both he and my former caucus colleague and now current House colleague, the member from Cape Breton Nova, is obviously very recognized throughout the political world here, not only in the province but in the country. So I'm confident, after working with my colleague from Cape Breton Nova, is that, you know, if he had been taking care of this file from the beginning, something would have been done by now. So that's why I believe that one of the reasons I believe that the current minister will act, and he's proven that by putting this bill in here. And in question period, Mr. Speaker, I hear his replies. He's going to regulate the industry, and he's going to deal with the situations as they arise, in hopes of at least stabilizing the cost of purchasing insurance. And I think that's basically all he can do at this time until he finds a way to find a solution. Because in all fairness to the minister, you know, the insurance industry, the last time, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that it was reviewed here in this province was in the 1960s, and I believe it was in 1961 or 1962. So, you know, Mr. Speaker, the minister has a lot of homework to get caught up on in all reality, you know, to deal with the situation. And now, you know, with an election looming here in the province, it's obvious that the minister is running out of time, unless, of course, the government is re-elected. And that'll be up to the people of Nova Scotia. And the honourable minister, I believe, knows that. That's why he's put this bill in here, so that at least gives 1 year to either get re-established as a government and get a process in place. And I do firmly believe that if that minister continues to remain in charge of this file, that there will be an all-party committee struck. And that Nova Scotians, you know, will have an opportunity to have an input. And I believe that the minister knows full well that you know, that's the answer. That, you know, drawing questions from me and estimates, he admitted that an all-party committee or a select committee can find solutions. Can be very helpful to finding solutions. And Mr. Speaker, that process, of course, would be set up on the floor here through the proceedings here, and that committee would answer to all members of this House. And that's the process, Mr. Speaker, I believe can find a solution, because it's we, members of this House, who have to go home and answer why these rates continue to skyrocket. And Mr. Speaker, they are affecting Nova Scotians. I could table probably hundreds of letters if I wanted to. You know, there's the story from the lady in Cape Breton North who received a letter from her insurance company telling her basically that her insurance was canceled immediately because she had cast iron piping in her heating supply. And Mr. Speaker, that's kind of, ridiculous, in my opinion. The lady was 73 years old and purchased insurance from the same company for over 25 years. So, Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that there's a problem. I could tell you about the story from the young man in Antigonish that purchased a car, and his parents wrote me a letter and told me that the insurance cost twice as much as the car did. So, and that young man was similar to a story that I heard here in this house today from another young man, Nova Scotian, who was preparing to go to college and ran into the same type of difficulty. So, Mr. Speaker, it's really affecting Nova Scotians from all walks of life. So the minister, one thing we got going for us now as a Nova Scotian is that at least we have an experienced minister that does have a reputation of getting things done in charge of this file. And, hopefully that this minister will put a strong effort into it. And after, discussing the file with him personally, I believe he's sincere. I believe he recognizes this is affecting Nova Scotians in their daily lives and in their pocketbooks, and he's concerned. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, being a senior himself, he recognizes that this, is perhaps hitting seniors harder than any Nova Scotian, impacting on their ability to provide essentials for themselves. So, Mr. Speaker, again, the minister, at least, after just at a very short time at the helm of this file, has acted. And I think it's important to recognize that. And, I think, in all fairness to the minister, I don't think the leader of the opposition or my colleague from Cape Breton Centre or the other NDP members over here are going to let him sleep on the issue anyway. And I don't believe the Liberals over there are going to let them sleep. So hopefully now that the government has some experience at the helm of this particular file at least, that, maybe the minister can fast track what a rookie minister couldn't do. And we'll find out in time, I guess. Very short time, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I speak to the backbenchers over there, quite a bit, particularly lately, Mr. Speaker. And, just some private conversations over there. I know my other colleagues here in opposition like to tease my honorable colleagues over there on that side of the house, but in all fairness, they're in private conversation, they are concerned about this issue. I know they are speaking to the minister about it, and they're not going to let the minister sleep too long on the file either, I don't believe, especially with an election in there rising. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, that Nova Scotians can at least, I don't know if the rates will ever be lowered in the province, but at least the minister, for the time being, has done something about stabilizing the rates. And that, I believe, Mr. Speaker, is important. It's a first step, as I indicated before. I told the minister this story about the senior in Bedford who, had a policy from his insurance company for many years. And it was approximately, I believe it was $578 for the year. And he just received a phone call first, and then when he requested the letter, they did send the letter indicating that his rates went up to $2,878, I think was the figure, Mr. Speaker. And of course, he was shocked and dismayed at that. And when he phoned me, it was hard for me to believe that the gentleman who was a senior didn't have a car accident, or there had to be a problem. There had to be a problem here. Rates just don't go that high, Mr. Speaker, when you don't have a speeding ticket, or you don't have a parking ticket, or you don't have any fender benders, or nothing happens, and your rates go up over 600%. There's something wrong. And the honorable gentleman, he called me, and so I went down to visit him, and he showed me this on paper, and it was hard for me to believe. Mr. Speaker, the gentleman even had an abstract there from, he went to Access Nova Scotia, of course, and obtained one of those, and it was very clear about an abstract that there was no glitches here. Nothing. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the gentleman indicated to me that he was about to get rid of the vehicle because he couldn't afford this type of an increase. And he was in the process of selling his vehicle. And Mr. Speaker, that was very, disheartening to him because, he felt that he should have at least the ability to drive a car. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, at least one thing, came to mind immediately when I was speaking to this gentleman, because he indicated to me that he was very grateful that he lived in an area, at least, that he had access to public transportation. And he expressed his concern about the seniors out in the rural areas where, there's no public busing, Mr. Speaker. And that struck home for me because really, Mr. Speaker, the vast majority, in fact, about 99.9% of my riding has no public transportation. And, for those people that require public transportation today, even in the suburban areas like Westmount and Coxseat, particularly the seniors in Westmount and Coxseat, have a great deal of difficulty traveling back and forth because there's no busing. Of course, with the financial shape of the municipality in Cape Breton, the busing was eliminated there, and it was unfortunate because the ridership was up and that sort of thing, but it was just that the buses had to come off the road because the municipality indicated at the time, at least, that they were losing money and they didn't have the money to operate. So those seniors know what it's like already, Mr. Speaker, to struggle to try to obtain transportation to and from dentists and doctors' appointments and malls and groceries and just the everyday things, drugstores, Canadian Tire stores or whatever. So, Mr. Speaker, seniors are being affected here, and I know that the minister is aware of that, and I believe that's one of the reasons why he acted so quickly here when he felt that the insurance industry...
Order, please. Would the honourable member of Cape Breton Lakes allow for an introduction? Absolutely. Thank you. The honourable member for the Eastern Shore.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do thank that member. Tonight in our East Gallery, we have some special friends in from the, I shouldn't say friends, but friends and family, I must say. The girls are at home so often, I don't know if they're friends or family. But anyway, my daughter Megan, and we have Chantel, Holly, and Laura, and of course my wife Colette, who's no stranger to this legislature. So we ask you to welcome them. Thank you, indeed. Thank you.
I believe the honourable member said, you said there were 5 sisters?
Oh, they're all my girls.
Oh. Welcome to the gallery this evening, ladies. Hope you enjoy the proceedings. The honourable member of Cape Breton Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, seniors are being affected more probably than even the young people, because I guess when we're young, at least we can hitch a ride, or we can, And a senior, when you lose the right to drive, and I think the honourable minister over there is very much aware of that. Being a senior himself, he certainly is aware that if he lost his driver's license, or the ability to drive, or the dignity to drive, I guess, in some cases, then that hurts, and that's why I'm expecting the minister to follow up. I don't believe that this is the final step for this minister. I really do have a lot of confidence that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. When he stood today and replies to the opposition questions on insurance, I think he, at least here on the floor, looked pretty confident that he was going to do what he said. What he said he's going to do, and he challenged the opposition today, Mr. Speaker, to pass this bill, and so that he can deal with the issues. And when the regulations are put in place, that all Nova Scotians will see that he's not toying with this idea or toying with the issue. He's serious. He's taking it on. He's going to put the effort into the file that is necessary to find the solutions. And I think he's aware of that. I think the other ministers over there are aware of this. I think the backbench over there is aware of this. Being an election year, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that it's not going to be put on the shelf or anything like that. I think it was obvious when the Premier moved the file to the much more experienced minister that he recognized that that this was an issue that was moving forward pretty quick. And again, not to fault the former minister, because he did have some initiative by sending it to the PUB board and all that sort of stuff. I know the minister here also has appointed an advocate for the insurance industry, which is, it's at least something that we hope will work. Or the minister says this individual has the authority to make it work, and I have no reason to doubt what he's saying, actually, Mr. Speaker, until we see some evidence that Mr. Jordan cannot deal with the situation or the crisis as they arise, then it's not fair to criticize. But, Mr. Speaker, I know the minister will look forward to when, if he does mess up, I would imagine he'll get lots of criticism, not only from myself, but probably from his own backbench over there. So I think the minister is aware, and he's aware, and that's important. He's not sleeping over there, and I know he's thinking all the time in this file. I know the other members in the backbench over there speak to him regularly about it. I think he recognizes that it's an issue, and I know my colleagues on this side of the House. I think anybody that pays attention to the proceedings here in the House, it's quite obvious that they're aggressively pursuing a solution. I mean, I have to give credit to both the parties. And I don't mind saying now that I'm a nonpartisan politician, Mr. Speaker, at least the only one in here for now, that the NDP have put a strong effort in at least putting pressure on the government and an effort themselves to trying to find the solution. So, and the opposition leader deserves that credit. It's fair. And it's not just coming from him, Mr. Speaker. As I indicated, I know my colleague from Cape Breton Centre is aggressively, I noticed that he's having conversations all over the place here on this, and I know he's talking to the minister, and I know he's talking to the other people over there, as my other colleagues from Cape Breton, all of them are doing the same. So the minister is sort of a little bit under the gun here, and I think with the election coming soon, I think the government, the minister at least, recognizes that something's got to be done. That's why this bill is at least the first step, and it's a beginning, and it's something at least he can deal with it. If something happens or springs up like the increase earlier this month, at least the minister has the ability to deal with the situation, and he's showing at least that willing to stand up and have the courage to do the things that are tough, because you know, when he put this bill back to May 1st, he's probably upset the industry a little bit here, because there were some companies within the industry at least were seeking increases. So, Mr. Speaker, he's not making any friends in that industry. I wouldn't suggest. So, you know, all indications, in all fairness to the Honourable Minister, is that he is going to deal with this issue. And I have the confidence that in the minister, just from watching him since I've been involved in politics. You know, he certainly has the ability. He has the knowledge. He has the experience, and there's no excuses. This government must find the answer. And I mean, if this minister, with this type of experience and abilities and proven record of accomplishments, cannot find the solution on this file for the government over there, well then, Mr. Speaker, I don't know who else could find it over there, really. And that's not to say the other ministers don't have their abilities or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that, but really, this is the most capable minister over there, and everybody in Nova Scotia knows this. And I think, you know I'm supporting the bill. I don't mind saying that tonight. And perhaps, you know, the opposition party should consider to support this legislation only as a first step. You know, it's not really admitting anything, but I think it's important to get this bill passed and have it put into law so that the minister has the tools to deal with the problem. And I think that's what he's asking all members of the House here, Mr. Speaker. And I think really, you know, that's all he can do at this point in time. With the election coming and things like that, at least he's shown he has control. And that's something you know, and although the other minister did you know, put an effort into it, I'm not suggesting that he didn't. I just think he took the wrong measures. And he went to the PUB board. And I believe, you know, that's not entirely a 100% mistake. I don't want to express that, but that information will be very helpful. That was gathered through that process, and you know, it can be useful. So it's not a lost exercise by any thought, Mr. Speaker. So, you know, but there should have been an all-party committee, and that committee, you know, is a very inexpensive process when we consider the other options. For instance, you know, there's the $600,000 bill that the PUB board is going to send the insurance industry. You know, like somebody has to pay that, Mr. Speaker. Guess who? So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what the minister does if that occurs. You know, when the bill comes to the insurance industry and you want to put the rates up to justify, you know, that's going to be interesting to see what this honourable minister is going to do with the tools that I hope will be passed here. And, you know, being a majority government on that side of the House, I have no reason to believe that it won't be passed. It's just a matter of when. So, you know, it's either tonight or tomorrow, or it's going to be next week, but it will be passed. So, you know, maybe perhaps all the members on this side of the House should recognize this, you know, like I could get up and scream and holler here tonight and blame the government and blame whoever or whatever for causing the problem and not doing this about the problem. That's not going to find any solutions for the people I represent, at least. And what I've been sent here for is to find solutions when problems exist or arise within my community, and that's what I'm interested in, Mr. Speaker. I want to find solutions so that, you know, it's just that maybe that the people I represent could enjoy that tax break just a little more. Mr. Speaker, you know, as I said when I voted for the budget, I believe people needed that $155. The majority of the people need it, or could at least use it. You know, they're not necessarily most people I represent work every day and contribute to the province, but I do have people that can't buy a job and don't have the money for a bus ticket also. So, you know, a lot of the working families now, you know, normally there's two in a household to make ends meet now because, you know, in Cape Breton, at least it's not an easy place to find a job, especially a well-paid job, Mr. Speaker. In fact, they're probably very fortunate if you can get a job over $8 or $10 an hour. So, Mr. Speaker, you know, if they could get a discount or save some money on insurance costs in this province, it's going to have the same impact as that tax rebate. And I hope the government on that side over there, and the honourable members, and the minister, and the backbench will recognize that. And I think they do. I really do. I believe this minister is going to take charge. He's indicated that by putting the bill in. He's at least doing something, Mr. Speaker. And I don't think he wants to be outdueled by a rookie minister from Cape Breton North. So something's going to happen, and it's already beginning to happen. And I think really that's all I can hope for. You know, at least go back home and tell people that the minister is finally doing something that I believe at least is going to stabilize things for a while until the solutions are found, because hopefully the minister now will go in the proper, you know, do the proper thing. And I don't think anybody is really sure what to do. I'm not sure. I don't want to sound like I'm an expert on the insurance industry, because I'm not. But I do know the facts are there, Mr. Speaker, and the facts are clear. The industry is eager to help find solutions. The opposition parties are putting a strong effort into finding solutions. I believe the backbench and the government wants to find a solution. I believe the Premier, in recognizing, you know, in placing the most experienced minister and the most probably, you know, the most capable minister on the front benches over there in charge of this file, I think the Premier's recognized that this is affecting. This is affecting Nova Scotians. And that's a good sign, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's not to say that that the government, you know, that the light come on late. I'm not suggesting that, but I think that at least the Premier recognized that maybe, you know, this file is really, it does need a lot of attention, and it does need an experienced minister, because, you know, the facts don't lie. The industry hasn't been reviewed since 1960 probably, or 61. So this minister I think he's been around that long, Mr. Speaker, in this House, actually. So, in fact, he may have been involved in the committee that did the last review. Who knows? So, if he wasn't, he certainly probably has the minutes at home, Mr. Speaker. So, I think, you know, it's positive, and I think the government is moving forward. And I do honestly believe, and I spent a lot of time in this file, and I put a lot of effort into the file, and I'm still doing some researching in the file. I haven't found the answer. Have I got some suggestions for the minister? Yes, I do. Certainly I do. But I don't have the answers, and I really don't hear any answers, really, Mr. Speaker, anywhere on this side of the House or that side of the House. So we need a minister there with that type of ability and the capability and the knowledge and experience to deal with this situation. And that's why I'm supporting the initiative that the minister has undertaken here with this bill. And I know I don't want to intend to speak too long on the bill. I think I got my points across in the bill. There's many more things I could say in the bill. I could tell you, you know, about I could tell you lots of stories, Mr. Speaker, but the stories are not going to find the solutions. What we have to do is find an avenue here to find the solutions. But I also believe that we have to provide the support that that the minister needs. And you know, I believe that the government will find a solution. I really do, especially this minister here. I know I'm going to be watching him very close. I'm going to, as all the other members over there, they're going to be watching him. But the one thing the Nova Scotians have going for them here is the election, and they're rising. You know, there is going to be an election either in May or June, or it's going to be in July, or it'll be September. It's coming. And that's one thing that Nova Scotians have going for them here. And I think the opposition parties actually are going to be playing that card for Nova Scotians because, you know, I think the minister recognizes that, you know, just today in question period alone, that he was under heavy fire. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm basically going to recap and say that I am looking forward to watching this minister in the days ahead, you know, to see what he is going to do to have a positive impact for Nova Scotians. And Mr. Speaker, I know the industry, it's going to be interesting, at least for me, to watch, to see what role the Honourable Minister allows the industry to play here, because really, in all fairness, they did come forward, and at least to my caucus, when I was over in that caucus on that side of the House, Mr. Speaker, you know, they come in there, and they put a presentation in us, and we become concerned right away, and I think, you know, in all fairness, they went to all caucuses, and I think if they had recognized, you know, if they had went and looked at New Brunswick and Newfoundland, I think they would have recognized it was going to come smack dab in the middle of them, hit them right in the foreheads, but they didn't see it coming, Mr. Speaker. Or either if they did, they sure as heck didn't let on. I'll tell you that. And I know it's been suggested, and I've even said it myself, Mr. Speaker, that the government, I thought originally that the government sat back and did nothing to collect tax dollars and have an impact in the operating budget. But after reviewing the budget dockets, you know, and stuff like that, and looking at all the figures, you know, maybe, I don't know if that amount of money would certainly have an impact or not, but I know the surplus that's reported is much higher than that money, so, you know, it's hard to say. It was obviously not a handicap to the government, that's for certain. It came in handy, I would suggest, but I just believe that the minister that was in charge at the time, he took the wrong direction, and perhaps this measure should have been taken in the year 2000, and maybe, you know, that's something we'll never know now. If this minister had been there, what he would have done in 2000. But in all fairness, I mean, you know, they're largely rookie government on that side of the House, Mr. Speaker, and any government has to mature. So, you know, I think at least they're showing some signs of recognizing the fact that this is an issue that affects the daily living here in the province. Because, you know, I know students now that can't purchase lunches because, you know, they have to pay more money for their insurance. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, you know, it's kind of tough living on student loans. So, you know. And I know the minister recognizes that, and I know the other members over there recognize that. And as I indicated before, the backbench is not going to let the minister, you know, sleep on the file. And the opposition parties over here aren't going to let him sleep on the file. And I know that that I'm not going to let him sleep in the file, Mr. Speaker, and, you know, he doesn't need a chihuahua at him, I guess. But, Mr. Speaker, I know that the minister is sincere, and I believe that he has taken the first step. I think it's a good first step. I think it's a good first measure. And he's all we have to do is look at Hansard to see what he said today in the House. And he challenged the opposition here and told them, and just pass the bill, and I'll show you. Basically, it was the answer. So that's the minister I want to see. I want the minister to show Nova Scotians that he still has that ability and that capability and that fire in his belly, Mr. Speaker, to do something, to have a positive impact here in Nova Scotia. And I don't have any problem saying that I have the confidence in that minister that it's going to happen. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to take too much more time. I think basically I said all I should say, maybe. But before I sit down, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say hello to my wife, Robin, back at home. She's had surgery on Tuesday, and she's resting at home. And I just want to tell her I love her and say hi to her, my youngest daughter, Brandy, who was home, of course, taking care of her mother. So, Mr. Speaker, with that, I just want to say thank you and have a good evening, and I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, member for Glace Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to be able to rise in my place and debate Bill number 45, the Insurance Act, this evening. And probably, Mr. Speaker, I can forewarn you that I'll probably be going for about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But, Mr. Speaker, this is a fairly serious matter that we're dealing with. I know it's a topic that has generated a lot of discussion, not only in this chamber but throughout the province. It's one of those topics that you could describe probably as a water cooler topic or a coffee shop topic. It's something that everybody is talking about these days. It's a heck of a lot more serious than who got kicked off of American Idol last night, Mr. Speaker. You know, whether or not you favor Josh or Clay or Ruben, which is another topic that you'd probably be talking about if, for those of you who watched the program anyway last night, or if you were discussing the current round of the NHL playoffs, you know, whether or not Vancouver won the game last night, Mr. Speaker. But in the end, you know, those are all great topics and ones that everybody is interested in. And this one is another topic that not only is everyone interested in, but it affects almost everybody. And that's the difference. It also affects you where it really hurts, Mr. Speaker, and that's in your pocketbook, of course. And it affects the people most of all who we can least afford to have hurt in this province, Mr. Speaker, and among them seniors, to say the least, and low-income earners who just simply can't afford such things as skyrocketing rise in insurance rates, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've heard from residents in Glace Bay who have called my office and have been complaining about their insurance rates going up. Not only auto insurance rates, Mr. Speaker, and I think we can make that clarification here. We're not just talking about auto insurance rates here. We're talking about insurance rates that affect our homes. We're talking about insurance rates that affect everything from farm equipment to fishing equipment. And this is a wide range of things and rate increases that have been applied, Mr. Speaker, from the insurance industry. It's probably happened to some of the MLAs in this chamber, Mr. Speaker. I know it's happened to me. I received a notice from my insurance company last year to replace your roof, or else we're not going to renew your policy, right? We're not going to renew your policy. And I've heard from other homeowners in Glace Bay who have said, well, we no longer cover the burning of coal. At one time, it was very popular to burn coal in Glace Bay. We'll no longer cover it unless you put in a flue in your chimney and bring it up to modifications. And there's a whole myriad of things that have happened that insurance companies have said, if you don't do this, we're going to cancel your policy. And when an insurance company cancels your policy, Mr. Speaker, what happens is that you're pretty well blacklisted throughout the entire industry. You can't go to another insurance company and say, well, insurance company A will no longer insure me. Your insurance company B, will you take on my policy? Because they won't. Then finally, if you're lucky enough to find an insurance company that will take you on, you're going to have to give something up, Mr. Speaker, whether you're giving up how much it's going to cost for comprehensive, or how much it's going to cost for your policy in general. And Mr. Speaker, I can remember a time not that long ago, but probably about 7 or 8 years ago, when I knew someone who was actually paying in excess of $2,000 a year for home insurance in this province because of the fact that they had had several claims against their policy. And for no reason other than the claims were made against the policy, the insurance company thought, that's too many claims. 3 in this instance, that's too many claims, and we're not going to renew your policy anymore. So, Mr. Speaker, you can understand, just with those few examples there, you can understand why people are tremendously upset when it comes to insurance and rates going up. First of all, you need it. It's a necessity. You cannot, it's illegal first of all, but you cannot and you should not drive around in a car without insurance. You have to have insurance on your home. And you can't get a mortgage unless you have insurance on your home. You should have insurance on your home because of, in case of fire or accident or whatever damage is there, you need insurance on your home. And the many other things that insurance covers, Mr. Speaker. So it's not just this luxury item that we're talking about here, and something that, well, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford it, you can pay for insurance. It's something that the average, everyday Nova Scotian requires to exist on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm somewhat surprised why the government hasn't, and the minister in particular, hasn't addressed this issue more fully, Mr. Speaker. More has to be done, and more should have been done, Mr. Speaker, in this case, because we all know what the problem is now, and this government hasn't laid out the full solution. There's lots of people in this province who are saying, and the discussion has been ongoing for some time. It's become quite heated in some corners, but they'll say, let's talk about whether or not we want public insurance, or do we want this type of insurance? What type of insurance industry do we want in this province? But the bottom line on all of that is that the people in this province don't want their rates to go up anymore. And as a matter of fact, I would be so brave as to suggest, Mr. Speaker, to you that the majority of people, this is not based on any kind of scientific poll or anything, it's just a gut feeling that I have, that the majority of people in this province now want their rates to go down because they've already gone up too much in the first place. Now, I did have a call from a couple of residents in Glace Bay, Mr. Speaker, who wanted me to bring up in particular this problem. And this problem being that since the freeze has been announced by the government, the freeze and rate increases, what has happened is that it doesn't prevent insurance companies from not renewing or refusing to do business in Nova Scotia. That's one aspect. But if you're with a company and you now know that the freeze is going to take effect or is retroactive to the 1st of May, the freeze is retroactive. But if your policy doesn't expire, let's say until the beginning of June, the 1st of July, when your policy is renewed, and you've already been notified of a rate increase, what insurance companies are saying is that, well, the freeze doesn't apply in that instance. You're still going to be subjected to the rate increase by the insurance company. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest just at first blush that that's not fair. And that's what, in particular, the couple of people that have called me with that problem have said they don't think it's fair. They signed a contract with their insurance company, whatever the insurance company would be, to have a particular, pay a certain premium for an insurance policy from, let's say, June 1st of last year to June 1st of this year. So that policy is not, it's in effect until June 1st. And you don't have a new policy until after that, if you signed an agreement, Mr. Speaker, in this case, with the insurance agency. But no agreement has been signed. All you've been given is notification that you're going to have a rate increase. And what the insurance companies are saying, because they've given you that notification, what this government has done with their freeze in rate increases doesn't matter, and it's a way for them to get around the whole issue. And what it is, Mr. Speaker, this whole bill, as a matter of fact, is nothing more than a delaying tactic. That's all it is. Mr. Speaker, you know, this government claims that it's taking a careful and considered and a well-planned approach to managing the insurance issue for drivers in Nova Scotia. They've had over a year to have a plan, but it's only when things begin to look really bad, it's only when the heat is really turned up and the pressure is on, that the Conservative government finally decides that it's time to do something. We've had a perfect example with the Sunday shopping issue. And we saw what happened with Sunday shopping in this province, Mr. Speaker. At one point in time, we had a red tape task force that recommended that municipalities deal with the Sunday shopping issue. And then we had a minister come forward and say, very firmly, I can recall it here because I thought it was rather presumptuous of the minister of the time, to say we're not dealing with this anymore until the year 2005. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you remember yourself, he was pretty firm and pretty adamant about that. 2005 for Sunday shopping, not a day earlier will we deal with this. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've seen what's happened to that in the last couple of days. That situation has been entirely reversed, and now, lo and behold, on the eve of an election, we've been told that we're going to have Sunday shopping, Mr. Speaker. But it's Sunday shopping light. That's what it is. Because it's not full Sunday shopping. We're only going to try it out in a period leading up to Christmas time. Now, this is the way this government does everything, Mr. Speaker. They do Sunday shopping light, they do education light, and they do insurance light. They do, you know, it's not the full measure, Mr. Speaker. It's not the full quality that people are looking for in this province. And the legislation is this just goes on to the list of the latest in action on many issues by this government, Mr. Speaker. With this legislation, they claim that they're putting prevention initiatives in place to stabilize the cost of insurance, and the government says they want input from consumers and business and the insurance industry on in particular, in this case, auto insurance reform. Well, it could have been achieved last year, Mr. Speaker, but instead the rates went up last year, they went up this year, and now we are paying for those higher rates. Nova Scotians are paying for higher rates, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we proposed at one time that there be an all-party committee on insurance rates in this province. We told the government and the opposition that we suggested that they join us in an all-party consultation. Our neighbours in New Brunswick and Newfoundland did so as well, but for whatever reason, Mr. Speaker, whatever reason, you know, whether it's just politics or perhaps it's just an issue of maybe it's just one-upsmanship, Mr. Speaker, which is what the official opposition loves to play in this chamber all the time. One-upsmanship, Mr. Speaker. Not a day goes by that they don't take the opportunity to play one-upsmanship with the Liberal Party, Mr. Speaker. And because I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, why it was that the all-party consultation or the all-party committee wasn't suggested, because it was our idea. That's why. That's the only reason, Mr. Speaker. The only reason. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, if at the time we had come up with a postcard and sent it out, they would have been against that as well, Mr. Speaker. But you know, what we have now, Mr. Speaker, what we have now, I'd be rather, if I didn't address the postcard campaign by the NDP, then I just don't think that I would be doing my job here this evening, Mr. Speaker. But let me tell you, if you take that cute little postcard and you send it out to as many people as the NDP did, and take a look at it, Mr. Speaker, take a look at the abundance of room on it that you've left for comments from the general public. Well, pretty tiny little lines that they can print in a couple of statements. But what you've done, Mr. Speaker, the questions are really difficult too, The questions that are asked on that postcard, Mr. Speaker, are questions that everyday Nova Scotians, of course they would say, yes, we're against higher rates. And of course they would say that they want something done about it, Mr. Speaker. But you know, it would have been as easy for the leader of the NDP, it would have been as easy for him to say, you know, when you wake up tomorrow, do you think you should breathe? You know? And they could have marked, yes, Daryl, I think I should breathe tomorrow. Would have been one of the answers on the postcard, Mr. Speaker. That's the general concept. And I should say that if the average Nova Scotian should be insulted that the NDP would think that little of their intelligence that they wouldn't be able to fill in a proper card with more room on it for their comments, Mr. Speaker. So we've seen the real NDP in this case. We've seen the one-upsmanship that the NDP can play, and we have seen exactly the game that they play right now. They care nothing more except getting votes. That's all they care about, Mr. Speaker. Nothing more. And Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you, they're no different than the Tories in this instance, Mr. Speaker. They're no different than the Tories whatsoever. You wouldn't be able to put up on the insurance issue, you wouldn't be able to stack up a Tory against an NDP and tell the difference on what they're doing, Mr. Speaker. No difference whatsoever. None. Because what the Tories are trying to do in this case is buy your vote with a delaying tactic that they call to freeze. It's the same delaying tactic or same vote voucher that they're going to send out in June with a $155 rum bottle check. It's the same kind of idea. It's the same way of thinking, Mr. Speaker. It's nothing but crass politics. That's all it is. It shows no respect whatsoever for voters in this province. And you know, Mr. Speaker, the best part about it all is that voters in this province have finally realized that they know this is what the government is trying to do. And in this case, they'll take a look at the fake campaign that the NDP has launched, and they'll know that that's exactly what the NDP is trying to do, Mr. Speaker. So Nova Scotians will wait until finally the election is called, Mr. Speaker, and as usual they'll make their decisions then, and they'll be able to see through the NDP propaganda. They'll be able to see through the delay tactics of the Tories, Mr. Speaker, and when they do, they'll be able to make their decision once and for all, Mr. Speaker. You know, as I said, Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that affects a lot of Nova Scotians, Mr. Speaker. There are seniors, Mr. Speaker, who will no longer be able to afford to drive a car. They'll no longer be able to afford to insure their homes, Mr. Speaker, because of these skyrocketing insurance rates, Mr. Speaker. And we know as legislators that something has to be done about it. That message has been coming loud and clear from Nova Scotians across this province, Mr. Speaker. Not because one party brought it to their attention, Mr. Speaker. Not like the NDP tries to claim and pat themselves on the back that they're the only party that cares, Mr. Speaker. That's the same thing that they do with any issue. They're the only party that cares, Mr. Speaker. The rest, Nova Scotians know that's not the truth, Mr. Speaker. They know that's not the truth. They know that we take our responsibilities seriously, Mr. Speaker, in this chamber, and they know that we're listening to them as well. We're listening very intently to Nova Scotians on the issue of insurance, Mr. Speaker. And we've been talking about the issue of insurance for some time now, Mr. Speaker. But just because all of a sudden we didn't decide that it's time to just jump into the fire, you know, willy-nilly without some kind of a plan, or all of a sudden just launch this fake postcard campaign that's out there just to support their leader in an election, Mr. Speaker. That's the only reason it's there for. The only reason. Now, Mr. Speaker, having said all of that, and certainly caught the attention of some members in the chamber, Mr. Speaker, it's a wonder that with a half-baked idea that this government has come up with, the so-called freeze or delaying tactic that this government has come up with on Bill 45, the Insurance Act, Mr. Speaker, that indeed Nova Scotians are angry and they're frustrated, and they've told us, they've made it very clear that they want action on insurance rates. They just don't want to freeze, Mr. Speaker. They just don't want to freeze. They want a plan. They want more. They want more. They want more than the leader of the official opposition's picture on a postcard, Mr. Speaker. They want more than his mugshot on a postcard. They want real consultative action, Mr. Speaker, that you can believe me, Mr. Speaker. Believe me as I stand here, the Liberal Party is going to give them what they want, Mr. Speaker. It will give them what they want. And in the end result, they'll be able to stand back when the day comes and finally say, look at the three, I know what choice I'm going to make. And it will be crystal clear, Mr. Speaker. I can guarantee you of that. And I can guarantee every member over there, some of them who will no longer be returning to this chambers, I can guarantee every member over there that it will be so clear, it'll even make sense to them, Mr. Speaker. Now, I said I wasn't going to take that long, Mr. Speaker, so with that thought in mind, and knowing that how serious a matter this is to Nova Scotians who are faced with these bills that confront them on a daily basis that they can't afford to pay, that we know as legislators we have to do something about this once and for all, and knowing that we'll take this seriously and we will give it all we have until finally a solution is found. With that thought, Mr. Speaker, I will take my seat. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad to have an opportunity to get up and talk a little bit about Bill number 45, which is, and let's be clear, this is not a bill to freeze insurance rates, Mr. Speaker. This is a bill to delay and to postpone insurance rate increases because, and quite frankly, it hasn't even done a very good job of that, Mr. Speaker, because we have, with regard to rates, in the past year and a half, they've been going up on an incremental basis. The insurance companies aren't stupid, Mr. Speaker. These are insurance companies. They don't once a year, on May 1st of every year, file for a 30 or 40 or 50 or 60% increase. Oh, no. They do it every other month or every third month, Mr. Speaker. They'll show up down at the UARB. I've gone down myself to take a look at this, and they'll file their increase, probably in September, again in November, again in January, maybe another one in March, and then another one in May, 10% each time. So if you look at any single increase, you say, well, that's only a 10% increase. That's not that much more than inflation. That's not that big an increase. But in fact, over a year, it all accumulates to be close to 65%, which is what happened last year, a 65% increase in insurance rates, Mr. Speaker, in this province. But before I get too much into that, I do want to respond to the member from Glace Bay who so eloquently waxed about consultation. And I find it ironic that he and his party will take the time to talk about the need to consult, when in fact that's exactly what our party has been doing over the past 3 months. We set up a task force. We've been meeting with individuals. We've been meeting with brokers. We've been meeting with seniors. We've been meeting with students and the impact of higher insurance rates on them. And we've been listening. As part of that plan, we've also gone out to, I think it's 150,000 homes. We sent out a brochure and gave people an opportunity to give us feedback on exactly where they stand on insurance. And to a great extent, we've been hearing already, Mr. Speaker, that many people are very upset about higher insurance rates. Obviously, the government must be hearing the same thing through the polling that they do, because their polling must be showing them that, Mr. Speaker, because they've decided this is an important enough issue to try and do some patchwork, do a quick repair job on insurance rates before the next election, Mr. Speaker. But unfortunately, that's not enough, and I think Nova Scotians are wise to that, and they're wise to the fact that this legislation does not freeze insurance rate increases. It postpones increases that were scheduled for May 1st. That's it. Any of them that were scheduled for April 1st or April 15th still go ahead. But the others that were scheduled for May 1st will be postponed until January 1st, 2004, Mr. Speaker. But again, one final point from the member from Glace Bay, Mr. Speaker. He wanted to talk about, as he would say, that the NDP, he believed, wasn't really saying much on this subject, and that Nova Scotians will see through that. But I think it's important to put on the record, Mr. Speaker, that of all three parties in this House right now, it's only the third party, the Liberal Party, that has not taken the opportunity to spell out what they will do with regard to insurance rates. Well, I would say, Mr. Speaker, that the reason that, as some of the members across the way have asked me to explain, The reason would be that they don't have a plan with regard to auto insurance rates, Mr. Speaker. They have not identified a plan. They've not identified a means by which they think we can at least, I'll give credit to the government on this, at least they have tried to think about some means by which this can be done. I would say it was a half-hearted measure. I would say it was a measure that will not succeed, because in the end, Nova Scotians understand that insurance companies in this province over the last 15 months have been attempting to increase the rates beyond what is reasonable for the type of record that they have.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Member opposite would allow me to make an observation. I mean, that's a fairly significant observation. Yeah, point of order.
Point of order, or point of personal privilege, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty... Yeah, Mr. Speaker, that's a pretty significant observation to be making about the Liberals not having any plan for insurance, and I just wonder if maybe a member from the Liberal Party would like to respond to that comment.
It's not a point of order. The Honourable Member for Cole Harbour-Eastern Passage.
Well, if they want to take some time, Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Honourable Minister of Community Services. I would encourage them. I would be glad to take my seat for a short period to allow them to explain what their plan is, Mr. Speaker, but no, I guess not. Mr. Speaker, I want to take a little of my time because it's interesting. Last week I had an opportunity to go up and listen to Ralph Nader. And Ralph Nader was speaking up at the World Trade and Convention Center, and I was there in the afternoon when he spoke. And he spoke about a lot of things, but one of the things that I thought was interesting is what he talked about was the history of insurance companies from his perspective. That at one point in time, insurance companies were not about investment funds, which is what you see a lot. You see these advertisements now. Insurance companies want to be like your bank or like your mutual fund. It's a means by which you put money in, they will invest it for you, you'll get a return. Whether you are a shareholder, obviously, or whether you are a client or who decides they need insurance of some form, they try and sell it as a means of investing. But originally what insurance companies, at least in the United States, and I think the same argument can be made for Canada, Mr. Speaker, that these insurance companies were there for safety reasons. Let's be honest, that's why we have insurance companies originally. The point was that they would be there if we needed it. If we had a fire at our house, if we had an accident with our car, it would be a pool of money that we all pay into, and when we need it, it would be there to help us with any injuries we might have, any property damages, or injuries or damages to others or their property, Mr. Speaker. That's changed. And by the way, what they used to do was they had safety engineers, they would get involved in safety. In fact, I believe, if I recall correctly, one of the people who set standards for equipment and in North America is something called the Underwriters of North America, or Underwriters of the United States. So I could be way off on that, but I believe there was a group that was set up by the insurance company to do testing, to set standards, so that they would say, we're not about to underwrite, we're not about to provide insurance on a piece of property or a piece of equipment unless we know it meets certain standards. And there we have a system that they put in place. They were there for safety. They were there as a form of engineering and setting standards to make sure that houses were safe, fire safety was in place, and all of that was being done, Mr. Speaker. But the fact is, they're not there for that anymore. They're there for investment. They're there for what they would argue is for people to be able to put their money, not only for purposes of a pool of money to protect them if they need it in the long run, but they're also for retirement funds, and they're also for some form of investment, RRSPs and so on, Mr. Speaker. And that's a problem, because no longer is their first and primary order of business the safety and protection of those who they insure. It's about making money. And hey, you know what? In a capitalist system, that's fine, Mr. Speaker. That's their corporation. That's what they're there for. But we're talking about auto insurance, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about something that is essential to Nova Scotians, essential like health care, something, Mr. Speaker, that it can be argued Nova Scotians require if they want to drive a car. And in many parts of this province, it's not an option. If you live in rural Nova Scotia, there isn't public transport of any real recognizable kind, and you're in a position where you need a vehicle of some sort. And Mr. Speaker, the problem is that insurance companies need to provide that essential service at a reasonable rate. Like electricity. We have a private corporation in this province that provides electricity, and we do not say that they should be able to increase rates without any form of approval, without any form of regulation, Mr. Speaker. We ensure that the Nova Scotia Power, Inc. Has to apply, much like with telephone, must apply for an increase in fees. Now, with the telephone company, they go federal to the CRTC, Mr. Speaker, but with Nova Scotia Power, they go to the Utility and Review Board. And through that, Mr. Speaker, we are able to have some semblance of control. And quite frankly, it may just be a simple one. It may be a self-regulated one to some extent, Mr. Speaker, because instead of going every 2 months to apply, like they do now, they just file their notice of increase. Mr. Speaker, what you have with Nova Scotia Power, because they're regulated, their rates are regulated, maybe it's only once every 2 or 3 years that they will actually go out and apply for a rate increase. And it becomes a political issue, interveners are involved, and through that process, Mr. Speaker, you begin to see that maybe instead of asking for a 10% increase, maybe it's whittled down to 3, or maybe it's rejected completely. But Mr. Speaker, the problem is with insurance companies in Nova Scotia under the current Insurance Act for auto insurance, they don't even have to get approval. They just file it and say we're raising it. So every couple of months, it's a 10% increase or a 15% increase, and it all adds up over time, Mr. Speaker. We don't think that system is fair. We don't think that system is working effectively when Nova Scotians see 65% increases in insurance rates as they did last year, Mr. Speaker. I want to talk a bit about the Insurance Act, because obviously that's what we're amending. But in particular, I think it's interesting to go back in time a little, because I'm not sure most Nova Scotians understand. Maybe they did think this was like power rates or telephone rates, Mr. Speaker, that there was some form of regulation. But let's be clear and let's put on the record that under the Insurance Act, there is no requirement for rates to be approved. With one exception, Facility Association does have to be approved by the UARB, Mr. Speaker, the Utility and Review Board, but most rates do not. Now, by the time the insurance companies are finished, maybe a majority of Nova Scotians will be on Facility Association, and because of that, maybe a majority of Nova Scotians will have their rates regulated, but we're not at that stage yet, though I might say with the dramatic increase in the number of people on Facility Association, it may not be a day far off. But Mr. Speaker, I think it's around 156, 155 in the Insurance Act sections of those sections, Mr. Speaker. You will see specific provisions that say that insurance companies have to file a rate increase with the board, and it has to take effect no sooner than 10 days from when they file it. Now, the board has a power, and this is something our party specifically asked for, Mr. Speaker, last year. When they file those rates, the board has a right to review those rates and decide whether they should be rolled back. That was the only form of regulation we had in this province. Now, the UARB is very unlikely to do that on its own, though we did ask them in January of 2002 to do that after rates started going up. People started getting their bills in the mail after Christmas of 2001. But the other way is the government has the power to order them to do it. This government was reluctant to do that. And there's a pattern to that, because I'll talk about that a bit more, Mr. Speaker, but this government was reluctant, and for a month they tried to stonewall and prevent Nova Scotians from having their own Utility and Review Board review the insurance rates that they knew were going up at an astronomical rate. Finally, and the member just stood up, the Honourable Minister of Community Services, at that time he was the minister in charge of skyrocketing insurance rates, Mr. Speaker, and he decided finally that there would be a review by the Utility and Review Board, for which we are still waiting to hear a final decision. And I think the government was hoping it would go away. They'd bury the issue and nothing more would happen. Well, the problem is, Mr. Speaker, the issue has come up again, mainly because the insurance companies could not sit and wait for the Utility and Review Board to make a decision. They have continued to increase rates since the Utility and Review Board was asked to review the rate increases back in January 2002. Since then, there have been many more increases, and this government was forced to do something. And we would argue that this legislation is a half-hearted measure towards ensuring that those rate increases do not occur. It's a delay, it's a postponement, Mr. Speaker, and that's everything. There's nothing else that it does. It does not freeze them. It does not roll back ones that, quite frankly, shouldn't have been increased in the first place. Yet this government does not have the gumption to actually go out and do that, Mr. Speaker. Instead, they have imposed on Bill 45 a postponement for 8 months. Well, Mr. Speaker, there are other means of also regulating auto insurance. In this country, there are a couple of other ways that are specifically used. I want to talk about that briefly as well. There's one system called pre-approval, Mr. Speaker, and that's a system involving, I think it's Alberta, Newfoundland, and Ontario that have it, and it's like the power rates that we have here. Insurance companies cannot get an increase until they apply to a public utility of some sort, public utility board, that then will have to decide whether the rate increase will go ahead. Not a bad way of doing it, and it's a way in which some provinces have been able to at least get some semblance of control over insurance rates. Again, they're not going to apply every 2 months. Presumably, they're going to have to apply on a more regular basis, or on a less regular basis, Mr. Speaker. And that would at least allow people to have some understanding. There'd be hearings. There'd be an opportunity for people to provide their input into the process, Mr. Speaker. And I would suggest to you that that's one option this government could be considering. Yet again, they have not identified that. They've just talked about a temporary freeze until after this election in hopes that it will go away. Mr. Speaker, the other system is what's called driver-owned not-for-profit systems. It's in British Columbia, in Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Many of my other colleagues have talked about it in depth. I'm not going to get in too much detail about it, just to say it's an option. It's an option that must be considered, not only because the rates are more reasonable, but because it is much better at ensuring fairness and preventing discrimination based on age, based on gender, based on where you live. Mr. Speaker, this is a reasonable system that should be considered for an essential service. For so long in this province, we had Nova Scotia Power as a Crown corporation. And it was successive Tory and Liberal governments that did that, and there was not much said about that being unreasonable form of government intervention. Mr. Speaker, we have a healthcare system that is in a similar position where we also have one insurer that does all the work for all Nova Scotians, and we would argue it is the best system in the world for an essential service. Well, Mr. Speaker, there are many in this province, in this country, in different parts of this country that would say that a driver-owned, not-for-profit auto insurance system is also the most effective means of providing an essential service and eliminating the profit that so sadly is part of the system now. And Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. What's the biggest problem with no fault? Well, there's many. Those of us who've worked in workers' comp may have our own concerns with meat charts and the coldness of some bureaucrat, whether it be private sector or public sector, making decisions. But, Mr. Speaker, I think the biggest concern people have is, in a private sector system like we have, imposing no fault, imposing limits on minor and soft tissue injuries, Mr. Speaker, has not correlated into a reduction or a freeze on auto insurance increases and auto insurance rates. What we have, Mr. Speaker, is no guarantee, and we've seen this in New Brunswick, we've seen this in other provinces, when you impose limits for no fault on smaller injuries or on certain amounts and soft tissue injuries, Mr. Speaker, the insurance companies continue to raise rates anyway. There is no guarantee that they will not continue, and why should they? The bottom line, the profit margin is their priority. And the bigger the investment they can give back to their stakeholders, to their shareholders, Mr. Speaker, that is what is important. But I would argue for an essential service, the government who requires Nova Scotians to have this essential service, to have auto insurance, Mr. Speaker, should also ensure that the profit is not the first priority. It should be a system, Mr. Speaker, that ensures that Nova Scotians are getting a service at a reasonable rate, like it is for the power, like it is for telephones, like it is for health care, Mr. Speaker. One of the other things that Ralph Nader talked about, Mr. Speaker, that I thought was interesting, and he said this came out of the United States, though I think he might have argued originally it came from Canada. But anyway, he called them CUBs. I believe that stood for Community Utility Boards. And these were, it's not just an advocate. And I could spend an hour talking about how this government has co-opted a term that we have tried to promote here, a consumer advocate, and turned it into nothing more than a flunky for the Minister of Labor, Mr. Speaker. What he talked about, Ralph Nader talked about, Mr. Speaker, was something called the Consumer Utility Board or Community Utility Board. And what this does is that they did it for power corporations and telephone systems in the United States, that they would have to put into their bills a form letter that explained that this advocacy board was in place in that state. And then people who wanted to could make a donation or could become members and pay a fee. I'm not sure what the fee was, but those fees would go towards operating this advocacy board. Not one person, but in a board. What would they do? Well, in case of insurance, they could then use those fees to hire actuarials, underwriters, engineers, lawyers, doctors, people who would be directly involved in how the insurance system works, Mr. Speaker, and then they could use that money to argue when the insurance companies are looking for rate increases. They would be there to challenge them. They would be there to challenge them at every move with the statistics, with the research, with the facts that need to be required. Because quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, you and I both know, unless we're actuarials, it's pretty darn tough to figure out exactly why someone pays insurance rates of this amount and someone else with very similar circumstances pays a different amount. And we need to have the funding. We need to have maybe something like consumer utility boards or community utility boards that would then be there as an advocacy board, would have the specialists, have the expertise that they would be able to make the arguments to fight against rate increases, Mr. Speaker. I think it's a really good idea. It's one that Ralph Nader says has made its way through the United States, and maybe that's one of the options we should be talking about here. But this government doesn't have it in this legislation, and this government is again trying to say that this is what we need, this is what their solution is to the problem, at least in the short to medium term, when in fact there are many other options out there that they should be considering, yet most of them are not even on the table, Mr. Speaker, because for them, they don't see it as a priority. They just hope this goes away until the next election. I do want to talk about one specific case that I heard about the other day, Mr. Speaker. The day after the bill was introduced, I had a constituent call me. She had just gotten her bill from an insurance company, not a broker, from the actual company, and with it they said, your rates are going up 30%. I think she was paying $100 a month. It was going to go up to $130. I think she was paying $103 a month. It was going to go up to $134 a month for her insurance, Mr. Speaker. And I said to myself, and I said to her, I said, you know, why we have this bill? It's frozen. The rates are frozen. And she said, well, my insurance company said this. They said, we raised the rates since last May, the last time that we told you there'd be an increase. We raised our rates 10% in September of 2002. We raised our rates another 10% sometime in between now and then, let's say January of 2003. We raised them another 10% on May 1st, 2003. Now, maybe that May 1st, 2003 10% rate increase won't apply to her. At least it'll be postponed until January of 2004. But the fact is those other two 10% increases, a 20% increase in her rates, is still going to go ahead. So this woman on Monday reads in the paper that there is a freeze on insurance rate increases. On Tuesday, she gets in the mail a letter telling her rates have gone up. She's confused. But the fact is, there is no way that this legislation as it currently stands will prevent her rates from going up. She's not happy. And she thought this government was doing something to help her, and they realized they are not. Again, this is a stall tactic, a postponement, hoping that this issue will go away until the next election. Well, Mr. Speaker, it won't. This is an issue that will continue to be on the front of the minds of Nova Scotians because everyone has to pay insurance, and on a regular basis, monthly, either themselves or someone else is telling them stories about how their rates have increased. One other story I want to talk about, a couple from the Dartmouth area who had a couple of minor accidents, Mr. Speaker, yet they were put on facility association. This is another major problem in our insurance system. A lot more insurance companies are rejecting what I would call decent Nova Scotians who have a decent driving record. Yeah, maybe the odd fender bender, who hasn't had one? But, Mr. Speaker, because of that, these people were moved to facility association. The rates are much, much higher. I think they doubled. And then that was even before the rates went up because of the UARB approval. And, Mr. Speaker, as a result of all that, Mr. Speaker, we're in a situation where people like them have to pay astronomical rates. Indeed, I think in their case, they're actually talking about selling their vehicle and having to replace it with another one because of the cost they're paying, $3,500 a year for insurance. And, Mr. Speaker, that's wrong. It's wrong, but the insurance companies continue to do it, and it's one more way that they will move people off their system. And again, I don't see this legislation preventing the insurance companies from trying to do that as well, and that's unfortunate.
Would the honourable member like to move adjournment of debate?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move adjournment of debate on Bill number 45.
Motion to adjourn debate. Is it agreed? The Honourable Government House Leader on tomorrow's hours and order of business.
I move the House to now rise to meet again tomorrow at the hour of 9 a.m. The House will sit from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. The order of business will be public bills for second reading and possibly some private and local bills for second reading. And, Mr. Speaker, with that, I would adjourn the debate. Adjourn the House.
Order, please. Order, yeah, order, please. Anyway, the Honourable Government House Leader on tomorrow's hours. No one could hear.
Oh, tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the order of business will be public bills for second reading, and if we get sufficient time, and I think we will, we'll put through some private and local bills, get them into committee. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now rise.
The House adjourned to 9 a.m. Is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. We're adjourned to 9 a.m.